or carving Halloween people and dressing up like pumpkins.
Why not?
Or pumpkining up carvings and peopling up like dresses. something.
I can't.
Hello and welcome to the QUACKCAST. This is QUACKCAST number 444. There's 3 4s here. If we were going by Chinese mythology, that would be a really bad luck number. Because 4, the character for 4 in Chinese language, one of the Chinese languages, looks the same as the character for death. So...
I thought you were insulting our looks there for a second. I was like,
you're all 4s. And this is right after the Friday the 13th too. Oh my goodness! Wow, all the mythology in one stinking pile of crap altogether. Do you guys believe in that crap? I'm
You're revealing your own.
Do any of you guys believe in this mythology?
Which one, the Chinese thing or the?
That is also crap. What I'm really saying is, none of you guys are idiots, right? No. I respect the traditions and the beliefs of people. Even though I can sometimes be a dick about it, I do respect it. So
I don't really subscribe to superstitions and stuff, and there's nothing I'd put my money on, but I have allowed myself a lucky number for all my life, and it's 4. So,
oh my god!
Wow.
So that was
all
true.
a matter of
Joking.
subjective interpretation.
Whoa.
That's kind of cool.
The Holy Quinity. Oh no, it wouldn't be Quinity. It would be... I don't know, what's Latin for 4? Quad. The Holy Quadrity? Well, there we are. That's amazing. Well, for me, it was always 3. Because, I don't know, 3 is just like the sides of a triangle. And it was like a cool number. 3. Like, it was the smallest amount of, like, points you can get before you get a shape. And it's the first prime... second prime number, actually. 1 is the first prime number. Oh, I'm going off track here. 3 is what my number was. What about you guys?
3. I've always found the number 3 appealing.
Another 3.
And the number 9. Because it's
9.
3 times 3 times 3, or whatever it is.
3 squared.
Yes, 3 cubed is 9. I might be wrong about that. Math is not my thing. But yeah.
I think square rather than cubed, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because if it's 3 times 3 times 3, that's 18.
A million. Yeah.
Million. None of us can do maths. What about you,
But
Tom?
I like 3, and it works well in structure too, like in structure of stories and structure of in a way in music and jokes and everything. Yeah, so it's sort of it's there a lot, and it's appealing to me. Yeah.
I like 7.
7. 7. That's a good number.
I still like 7. Number. No matter how you I still like 7. This is all you like.
It's another prime number, which is interesting. Well,
prime numbers are cool.
I think from the numbers to 1 to 10, there are a few. Or maybe those are the only ones. No, 5. 1, 3, 5, and 7.
5, 9.
9's not prime because you can divide it by 3.
Is this part of the QUACKCAST?
It is.
Exactly.
Shut up, Pitt. Okay. Well, all right. So this is the QUACKCAST number 444. That's why we're talking about numbers because, There's 3 4s in it. We're going to be talking about endings in this particular QUACKCAST, which was Tance's news post for today, sticking the ending, which means getting a good ending rather than sticking it to the audience, which is a bad ending. And before we get into that, I have to bring up the featured comic. Kwai is going to talk about that. So Kwai's featured comic for today is Epic Save Room. Oh, it's by Epic Save Room. No, it's not. That is something else. I'm getting off track here. Okay, so the featured comic is called The True Face. Kwai, please tell us about The True Face.
Hello, this is Kwai Daigakusen, and the feature I've selected for this week is The True Face by Marco Rossi, and it is rated E for everyone. In an ancient civilization on Earth, humans had a stronger connection to insects, especially the giant butterfly, and nature. 2 competing clans, the Tor and the Rahais, came from 2 separate regions, but were constantly at odds. An ancient ritual is about to begin after a hasty altercation between a Tor villager and a Rahais soldier that ended in an unnecessary fatality. Now the Rahais soldier is about to be asked a series of riddles by the Tor and hopefully can make it through a whole ceremony dedicated to the goddess. The art is drawn in full digital color in full-page layouts. Figure out the true meanings behind the snake, the earth, and death, and read The True Face by Marco Rossi, rated E.
And that was Tancerine talking about The True Face.
What?
Not Tancerine. It was Kwai Daigakusen talking about True Face. Jeez, my brain is just... Ugh. All right. Next up, we have Gun Wallace's music, and it is called Wild Wolves. It was for the comic Wild Wolves, which is a comic by Epic Save Room, which is why I got that wrong last time. Okay, so Wild Wolves. The desolation of the wolf howl is emphasized by the cold darkness of the strings as they moan in unison, bleeding bleakness and shadow into the world, and yet there are hints of light sparkling within. So, take it away, Gun Wallace, with Wild Wolves. And that was our featured music. Wild Wolves. Okay. To the QUACKCAST, people.
Hey!
So...
Endings.
And we're not going to sing that terrible song by The Doors, which I hate. We're going to talk about endings. Sticking the landing. Unlike Tance's gif, or gif as Tance says, of an aeroplane crashing into the side of a mountain. GIF? Let's not get into that.
What's the... Yeah, you have a bunch of GIFs of endings. What's the one with the girl with the gun?
Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes.
She's got a Colts 1911. I know that because I was at a military fair today and I was looking at all sorts of things.
And then you have Game of Thrones, and then you have Last Crusade, I believe it is, which is a great ending.
Yes.
Is that the Last Crusade?
That's the Last Crusade.
Yeah. You guys like that? I hate
you win
that film.
I was wondering if anyone would ask which endings these were. I mean, okay, you can tell Inception.
Yeah, and I knew Last Crusade because I've seen that movie so many times.
Yeah,
great ending. And I don't know the other one though. The dude in the is he in fog in a little wicker chair or
Fury
sucked into a mirror? Fury. Okay, I don't know it.
The last
Fury, and he's being the last one. It's from the World War II movie with Brad Pitt, and this is basically the very last shot of the movie.
Oh, right. So what, is he in an aeroplane or something? Or?
He's in the back of a transit truck or something like that. If you haven't seen the movie, I don't want to spoil everything. I mean, okay, since this is the last shot, you know that this particular character survives. But still, I don't want to ruin the rest. It's a very good.
I'll ruin it for people. Okay, so there's a tank battle, and just before the tiger destroys their little Sherman, a dragon swoops out of the sky and blows up the tiger tank, and then the dragon crashes into the side of a mountain and explodes, and the tank runs out of petrol, so has to get in a truck and drive away. So that was the ending. Yeah. So
exactly.
Sorry, guys. Sorry, it's ruined for you. That big surprise.
Still, though, it would have been a better ending for Game of Thrones. I can't help myself. Like every opportunity, I have to do that.
Game of Thrones. People keep telling me it's great, and then I keep seeing scenes from it that are bad, and I'm thinking, okay. I know this is a bit off topic, but still, this is part of the QUACKCAST. There's this stupid scene where the Daenerys, I think, and this other guy going, oh, la-di-da, on their dragons, and one of the dragons suddenly gets shot out of the sky by this big crossbow bolt. And I'm thinking...
we don't talk about that.
Well, I'm thinking, oh my god, in real war, when you've got, and any kind of flying thing, you have a machine gun that fires 1,000 rounds a second or something like that. You have a 2% chance of hitting an airplane with that. Even a biplane, and you've got a machine gun, this thing's flying really slow. You have 5% chance of hitting that with a gun that is designed with sights and everything, and it's bullets that fire out to 5 kilometers into the sky, and they got tracers so you can see where they're going, and they don't hit that aeroplane. And these guys, one shot, a massive crossbow bolt, one shot, and it hits the dragon and it kills it. So not only does it hit it, it hits it in a vital point. And I'm thinking, whoever wrote that was an absolute imbecile. No, that's not how things work ever. Yeah.
They practiced a lot.
Yeah.
Camera.
They practiced with all their dragons, shooting them up into the sky.
Exactly. Have this giant dragon cemetery. They killed off all their dragons practicing so they can kill the one that Daenerys has.
Yeah.
They're very smart strategy.
They can just shoot out of the clouds or whatever down on the water there, and even though their ships are rocking around too because they're on water, they can still. Oh my god, there's just so much stupidity.
Yeah,
those writers are idiots.
Game of Thrones was a very. It's a lesson in a lot of things, and I cannot say that it's not worthy of a view. At least up until, let's say, season 5, maybe 6. Okay. And then, again, you should see the other ones because it's a lesson of how not to do things.
Yeah. Like, we talk about Star
really
Wars a
good.
lot. The prequels of Star Wars are a good lesson in how to do bad setups and bad writing or bad continuation of a story. So that they're crap, but they're good kind of lessons. And so
and the thing is, so to get back on track on the topic, the ending, there's a reason I call it a proper ending, because it could be good, it could be bad, it could be, half and half and stuff like that. But it has to be warranted. It has to make sense. And it cannot be rushed.
Yeah.
In a sense. And the problem with Game of Thrones is not how they ended it, even though the choice of king is a recipe for World War II for them. It's gonna happen like in 2 years more tops. There's no other way. But even assuming that they pick and choose the way they did, and even assuming that Daenerys goes off the top and becomes super crazy and so on, you would need easy another 2 seasons to be able to sell that kind of ending.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. And what is being thought about this is that even though they give you a good quote unquote ending, the Stark kids, spoiler, I guess, live, and they basically rule all of Westeros one way or another. That is not going to be satisfactory, because the ending was not consistent and coherent with regards to the character development and the story development, the plot. Everyone had to stop doing what they were well established, that they were doing in order for the ending to take place.
Yeah.
You have your super villain, was Cersei, in my opinion. Again, there's also the Night King, sorry. You had your super villainess, let's say, standing at the window and staring for a season and a half. She would not do that. She was not that kind of a villain. She wasn't in an Inspector Gadget episode. So when you force that is, you see the author hand literally reaching in and gripping a character and stopping them from acting.
Right.
When this happens, the ending is not going to be satisfactory, even if it will be eventually. I don't think there is no ending that you cannot sell in any story, but every sell has a cost. You have to pay that cost, not the ending to be appropriate.
Yeah. Well, I remember
take it there.
Back when I was in school, primary school as we used to call it, grade school as you guys would call it. When people did endings of creative stories, they'd all do horror stories because they were, I don't know, the flavor of the month. And they'd all of them would end them by saying, "And I was never heard from again." Which is, of course, it doesn't make any sense. Who's writing the story? Yeah. How do you know you weren't heard from? And that was how people ended their stories, which I always found a bit insane. Just because it's really hard to do good endings, and people tend to copy each other. So that's another reason why endings tend to have tend to be quite similar often, is because we copy and we do what's popular. Like your example in the GIF of the Last Crusade ending. So that's a Spielberg movie, I take it. He's a guy who's like really versed in popular cinema and tropes, and he deliberately did the Riding into the Sunset because the film is like a very classic adventure film, and he gave it a classic adventure end just to make a point of that. That was a completely deliberate thing. And
I think with the underpinning of like this is at the time was very strongly intended to be the end. Like this is it.
Yeah, and that's why they rode off into the
Indy
sunset.
rides off.
Yeah. Which is
so it felt just right, and it was great.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different meaning and reasons.
There are no other movies. There are no
That's
other
right.
movies.
They never made another Indiana Jones movie, and that was so smart.
Yeah, it's the last one, which is awesome. Awesome. I can't even like bear the thoughts of my crystal skull in like
it'd just be mind. It would shatter you if your skull was crystal. It would just shatter you.
I'd have to hide in a fridge to protect myself from any other versions.
Yeah, and look at meerkats afterwards. Yeah. So if you had changed the ending to Indiana Jones, again, it would be disingenuous because it's the type of the story and it's the type of character, I think. I mean, if you had them, I don't know, all die at the chasm, when the seal was broken or something.
Yeah.
That's not the type of story that signals this sort of thing. The idea was choices and making the right choice, don't choose poorly.
Yeah.
And since they made the right choices, then they should survive.
So I mean, he could have had his dad die in that scene. That could have worked. Like his dad could sacrifice himself.
They could have done that.
That could have worked.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like,
this actually kind of segues us into Tanz's three kind of pillars of a strong ending.
Oh.
So in your news post, you have number A, be a coherent and reasonable how to do a good, appropriate ending that delivers. Be a coherent and reasonable result for the characters' arcs as presented through the story.
Yeah. Okay.
And
should
we just say them all, or should we explore each one? I'll say them all first.
Yeah.
Because actually, the one you just said is a little bit different. It would maybe be C.5. Number 2, be a coherent and reasonable ending to the plot as it developed through the story. So pay off the plot kind of thing. And then C is be consistent with the theme and message of the story. So whatever underpinning. And what you were just saying would be a sort of, I guess, appendix to this, the tone. Like what kind of story are you telling? Like that'll reflect are people die or people fall in love or what?
Exactly. And a little bit the theme as well.
Right.
The theme is making the right choice or suffer the consequences of the bad one. So you have all the characters that made bad choices basically perished, and all the characters that made good choices survive. So there's that.
Yeah, you can do that, or it can be a horror movie, and the only one who survives is the sexy girl who never has sex. I think that's how.
It'd be a lot more like no matter what, you die, or in a different tone of movie, nobody really dies, but people might lose, sort of in some other way, some less final way, or whatever. They'll lose their relationship.
So what are your favorite endings
or whatever.
And stuff?
Yeah,
favorite endings.
Tell me.
Should we end the episode with that? We'll think about it as we.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll talk about our favorite endings. I got to think about it a little bit.
Come up with one. Everyone, come up with a favorite ending.
Yes.
Or a least favorite ending. Either one. I've got a few. Or at least one.
So, we have some comments here. Do you guys want to look at some of these, or do you want to talk? Or
might as well.
Would you paste the link?
To the news post.
I'll just bring it up. Hold on. Don't do that. I'll just bring it up.
There.
No worries. I got it already.
Oh, macarossi sounds very Italian.
Macarossi.
Yeah, I don't know if I've seen macarossi around. The True Face. He is the person who had who created the comic that was featured.
Oh my gosh! Well, that worked out.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, we have okay. So Gunwallace says, "Good advice." So you've been validated, yes. Tans.
Thank you, Gunwallace.
Thank you.
That's
Gunwallace
a mic
is a very fine writer.
He's a very fine writer, but he's very concise.
Yes.
That's not a problem.
That doesn't contradict. Yeah, it's part of.
Yeah. Concise is good. He's economic.
It's the soul of wit.
Spartan.
Used Books. Our friend Used Books, also a good writer. Best example of dropped ball I can think of is Into the Woods. Most of my family emerged from that movie hating it because most of my family are tragedy averse, and it's not a pleasant ending. But it wasn't supposed to be. The message of that story was powerful. It was one of loss and survival. The characters lost their most significant connection and had to form new bonds to each other. Fine. But for me, the ending failed because they ruined the consistency of that message by killing off a survivor of loss, the mother of the giant. To have the impact of the story message, she should have been a grieving survivor too. The fact that the message was consistent through every arc except the giants destroyed the impact for me.
Okay.
Into the Woods has a giant in it? I don't know that movie.
Yeah, I don't remember I remember watching it, and unfortunately, I was extremely bored, so I don't really remember it. Into the Woods. But there is a... What?
I have never seen it, so I don't know it. Go on, sorry.
Yeah. But the premise, the reasoning that Used Books gives is interesting. I mean, you could have an ending that doesn't serve all the characters, that some of the characters meet with an ending that doesn't serve the message of the story, or it appears contradictory. It might not be in some kind of reasoning. So that is something that makes people discuss, definitely. So what I wanted to say is that tragedy ending with a tragedy has to be very, very thought out by the author, because you are going to let your audience walk out with this heavy feeling. So if you are going to do that, I think that it warrants making sure that it feels complete and balanced and right, even though they feel, burdened about it. So that's the only comment I had to make.
Well, Maracorosi, he has a very interesting point about the moral ending of Karate Kid.
Mm-hmm.
So the story is structured not just around like a story ending or a theme ending, but giving the end, a moral dimension for for the character growth, but also for the meaning of what the character went through. So it's not just based on, Daniel does this, Daniel does that, Daniel is now this. It's more about, this is what it means to be an adult male, or this is what it means to be a person who has achieved self-discipline and, come into adulthood without becoming a bully, without facing aggressors down, without becoming the aggressor, which is an interesting point.
Mm-hmm.
should I read it out? It's quite a very involved post. Okay. He says, in my view, the problem is that most stories are actually moral questions, so the ending has to be a satisfactory answer to the moral question. This is consistent with the common theme of personal development in a story. That implies a moral judgment. For example, take The Karate Kid, the old one. Daniel is a young teen male who is bullied at school in front of his flame, the girl he likes. He therefore wants to become strong. Being strong is part of a male gender identity, and Daniel is therefore in search of some role model, and the only one he can find are the Cobra Kai, those people, and they're a bunch of bullies. But then he finds another role model, Mr. Miyagi, who teaches him that strength doesn't lie in being a bully, but rather in self-discipline. Stuff happens until Daniel at the end defeats Cobra Kai guys with a move that symbolizes the time spent doing karate katas. Therefore, it symbolizes discipline. So, his crane kick, which is, a simple kind of kata, simple move. Anyway, so he says Sieg. So in practice, Daniel's growth story is an exploitation of a moral story. The answer to the question, how can I become a strong, grown adult male without being an asshole? The moral question is really the backbone of the whole movie and is, so to speak, structural. So an ending that doesn't deliver on the moral question doesn't really work. Okay, so it had to deliver on that or it wouldn't really work. And this isn't just a matter of taste, but rather structural problem. All the plot rotates around this question, so you can't not answer it. But in recent times, the idea that stories have a moral sound old-fashioned, because mostly people conflate having a moral with having a standard morality. So many writers forget this. And in my opinion, it's a really basic thing. Yeah, because a moral to the story doesn't mean you have to have standard morality, do this, it's right, or, it's not prescriptive. It's not saying you should do these kind of behaviors or whatever. It's rather a moral to the story rather than morals, which are dependent upon your society.
Actually, I'll say later.
Okay. Well, anyway, that was Mara Corosi's.
I think it's Marco Rossi.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Marco Rossi. Okay, damn it. Sorry, Marco.
Yeah. And he's this is irrelevant, but he's eating noodles in his avatar, which I find funny.
He is.
Because every time you see his avatar, however many messages he does, he never finishes those noodles. So,
But what's the moral of that story?
Exactly. Yeah.
So
it's the journey, not the
No, it's not finishing the cup. It's being what I wanted to say is that he is absolutely right in the sense that whenever we create a story, even if we deny it, by nature of the structure of the story, and wanting to tell it, there is some kind of message in it. Let's not call it moral or whatever, so that doesn't get conflated with morals or ethics or whatever. But it is definitely a message that you are going to convey, even if it is something that is a relatively quote-unquote shallow story that is not meant to teach anyone anything. It will still have message, and that not avoided because simply by presenting a problem, a hurdle, the characters that they have to overcome, ways that they will choose overcoming the hurdle are going to give messages. either for the characters or for the story. So whoever claims that you can have a story without message either has not written a story or is lying. So I'm very absolute in that.
It's going to be in there somewhere, whether it's like they say, like the theme or the message of any romance is love conquers all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the theme or the message or whatever, I don't know if you consider them exactly the same thing, but is usually a pretty simple thing, and it doesn't have to be a thing that's, universally true.
No.
In every case, but in that story, that's your theme. Like that's either the statement you're making or the question you're asking. It can be not something with a definitive answer, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But if you're you can be sort of exploring a theme, and sometimes things work out, sometimes they don't. Well, there you go. Maybe that would be your message. Yeah. So you are making a statement, actually.
Well, exactly. And
the strongest will survive, or the most clever will survive. Like it can be something like that. It just underlies everything. In the
stories that do it badly, I think, were the Twilight Zone stories, which I always hated. Twilight Zone stories I liked because they were weird and quirky. I think everyone liked that. But the morals were stupid in those, and those stories like O. Henry stories with a very definite, they do have like they're meant to, they're structured in a way that would seem that they have an obvious moral. Character does something, character gets punished for it, their worst thing comes through. But it's always some kind of stupid punishment for something they've done that there's no moral, there's no, reason for them to get that. Oh, this character said something bad about fat people, so he's going to eat and get so fat that he dies, or, something. It was just ridiculous kind of Faustian deal there that the character doesn't even realize they entered. It's like basically really, really silly kind of devil's punishment that characters have, like a monkey's paw kind of thing. You'll get what you wish for, but it won't be exactly what you wish for. Everything's going to turn out crap for no particular reason, and they were just very silly. The moral setup was just dumb.
Monkey's paw.
Go on.
I don't agree with monkey's paw, actually.
Okay.
It's a very creepy story. I find that it is actually amazing as a story.
I'm giving that as an example of, because bad things happen, you get your wish, but it's something really bad, and that's the monkey's paw thing. But in the Twilight Zone version, it's like all the stories are like that.
Yeah.
And, well, not every single one.
A lot of them, like I've rewatched at least the beginning of that series so far, and there's so many episodes I don't remember or never saw, and it's not really. I know what you mean, but the actual original Twilight Zone series is very life affirming a lot of the time.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not the most famous episodes.
I haven't actually seen Twilight Zone episodes.
Oh,
I remember.
Good.
So
very, very
I cannot really say. But for example, the message, you may not agree at all. Like, remember, recently I talked about the Green Mile, or didn't I? I don't remember.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, you did.
Okay. So I personally hate that movie, although it is an excellent movie.
Yeah.
And I hate it for the message that it gives. However, the ending is very consistent with that message. And it is very well done. And it is very well structured and delivered and everything. I just hate it for what it is. And that has nothing to do with the quality of the ending and the quality of the story.
Yeah.
So the idea here is that whatever you choose to convey in your stories, how you end them, I think is very important, like 50% of it. Because if the ending is ruined, then the whole story is ruined. It's like you are cutting off the legs from the table.
Yeah.
No matter how nice the table is, it collapses, it's unusable. So yeah, and the key thing that is that people tend to care more greatly about veneer than structure in stories, in mainstream especially. The whole subverting expectations thing. I'm going to have a twist ending, the Shyamalan ending. Whether it is warranted or not, it's going to be there, damn it, because that's the smart thing and the clever thing, and that's how you are a genius.
Yeah, that's irritating. Well, what you said a while ago about the idea that you can sell any kind of ending to your story is interesting, because like some movies will have a couple of different endings, and they decide on them based on, I don't know, what the director feels or what the test audience goes for, and they end it slightly differently. And I was thinking, like the film Scott Pilgrim versus the World, there's, in the structure of the story, it's all about Scott Pilgrim sort of getting mature enough to go out with this Ramona, this girl, but he also was going out with this other girl, Knives, and so there were three possible endings. Either he gets to be with Ramona, he grows and he decides, hang on, Knives was the girl I should have been out with all along, or he has no girls and both girls, go their separate ways and he goes his separate way. So there could have been three endings, and they showed those all in the special features at the end, and they all work, which is interesting to the story, but they give it different meanings. They give the story a very different feel depending on which one they went for. They went for he goes with Ramona, which was that was the ending that you want as an audience, because you grow attached to her and you also feel that character has more reality to you, and that is if you're inserting yourself as a person, like you like identifying with Scott, you want him to go with her. So, because everything seems to be leading up to that. So that's the
I don't know if is that the best choice for him if he was a real guy, but as a movie, like it feels like that feels like the right ending for sure.
As a movie, the best choice would have been neither girl. I think that would have been the best, like the best moral ending as well, because the meaning of it is growing up and sort of maturing and realizing, hang on, I've been a dick in the past to these people I've been going out with. I've left a lot unsaid and stuff like that, because say, Ramona's relationships with all her past boyfriends, obviously she has a massive lot of baggage, and that's why they'll have he has these symbolic fights with each one of them, because she's left a huge amount of baggage on her end, but Scott's also left baggage, and you see that with his bandmate, can't remember her name, that used to be in love with him, and then there's Knives, his current girlfriend, who he whatchamacallit, he cheats on while he's wanting to date.
Does he? Ramona. I didn't even remember that she was his actual girlfriend. I thought she just liked him. I only saw that movie once. But
she is his girlfriend in the very beginning of the film.
Okay.
And so he definitely cheats on her. So it's an interesting film. Yeah, but the moral ending would have been that he has no girls, and they both go off.
Mm-hmm.
But what
would have been
that reminds me of an animated series. The name was Samurai Champloo.
Oh, yeah, I know the one. Yeah,
it's basically more or less it's a road movie of three fighters, in a sense, like two swordsmen and a girl who wants to find her father. And the whole point is the character arcs of these three characters as they go through adventure after adventure, trying to get the clues and track her father and find her father, and they are sort of her protectors, and they slowly get attached to each other. All three become a unit. And the whole point of the story is closure. Every single character that begins the particular road trip has business that is unfinished in one way or another. It's one different from their own past. So by the time they are done, they have found, each and every one of them has found closure with their own past, with the people that have hurt them, and all that kind of things. And the final shot is them being at the crossroads where they all go their separate way after hugging. And they continue their lives being complete individuals that don't need each other anymore, although they are very much bound by friendship. And I think that this is a perfect ending for this particular series. Sorry about the spoilers, but if there were any. Although, there were the notorious ships, the girl should go with this guy, or the girl should go with the other guy, or, should all be together in, weird arrangement or something like that. But I think that any ending like this would be a disservice to the story, because they needed each other when they were not complete. The only thing binding them together was this quest to basically dispel their own demons, one way or the other. The moment it was done, they were not bound to each other. They had nothing else in common. Not the one of them.
Yeah.
So the whole point was, we did this, we're complete, now we can move on with our lives. We are not in limbo anymore. So that is a perfect ending, because it serves the story, it serves the characters, and it serves also message, which is you have to face whatever it is that is holding you back. So only after that you will be able to move on.
I had a logic to it.
Yes, that's a perfect ending. Although I think you need to be a certain age to realize it. Because if you are younger, you want someone to get with someone else, because you invest in a romance that isn't there. Because there is no romance. That's another thing. But that's it. I digressed a little bit.
No, that's interesting. That's interesting.
Great.
It reminded me of the ending of, say, Cowboy Bebop.
I haven't seen that one yet.
Oh, so I shouldn't spoil it for you.
No.
Well, it's not really spoiled. Okay, so Cowboy Bebop is a great anime, known for its excellent animation, fight scenes, fantastic graphic design.
I think it's design. The same creators that made Samurai Champloo made that.
I think you're right. Excellent music as well. Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, in Cowboy Bebop, it's rather interesting. So you have these bunch of characters that are sort of thrown together accidentally. They just all sort of come together as a very loose kind of bunch. And there's these two, the two sexy young characters of dating kind of potential are Spike and Faye Valentine. So, and you think, okay, a simple ending would be for, everything to be happy and those two to get together, because there's obvious sexual tension between those two characters and no other characters. And obviously they're going to get together. And they never do at all in the story. And the ending is basically nothing to do with... The characters all have their personal goals filled. Like their personal things that they wanted out of life, I think. but Spike, he's the main male character. His ending is like the ending of the main story, and it's sort of hinted at all throughout the story, just in bits and pieces, that he's like, part of some big mafia family, and he has some showdown coming with some, he's like an equal and opposite character in the mafia, like a former brother or something, one of these silly Japanese things that it's like a Japanese trope, the way they set it up. You always have your counterpart who's on the other side. You reformed away from the mob, but he's still there, and you two are going to have to face off eventually. And it's a very sort of fatalistic ending for him in the end. I won't absolutely spoil it, but yeah, it's sort of a very fatalistic thing, and you're a bit disappointed by what happened. Although the story is good in that each of the characters did have an ending that was fitting to them, and that's how they ended it, rather than having one big ending. We have, okay, here's your perfect ending, Ed. Ed was this like teenage girl character who was like a bit weird and a computer hacker, and she had an ending that was absolutely perfect for her, so a super happy ending for her. And Faye gets a certain ending that's appropriate to her, and the big muscle guy, I can't remember what his name is, he gets an ending, and the little dog and things like that. So yeah, that's another interesting way of doing it. You sort of parcel it off rather than having one climactic finish. And of course you have the ending of the story, and that's why I bring up Spike, because he is like the final end, and yeah, they were hinting at that all the way through. It's a very Japanese ending, I would say.
That's awesome. And the thing is, often if you don't do the proper ending, as I said, you might even feel unfinished. Like in the Samurai Champloo one, if someone got with someone or they stayed together somewhere, you would feel unfinished. You would wait for a sequel or something like that. Not necessarily like, what the blip ending is this. I don't think that would be a problem. But you would expect more.
Right.
As they end it, if now they try to continue it, I think it will ruin the balance of the particular story. So there's that. And another last thing I wanted to say about endings was when you completely go against the characters in general by being the super dab fate hand of bad in the whole thing. Again, you ruin the message. There is this book I remember reading as a kid that traumatized me, and I still remember it. Was that we still have here. She was an author renowned for children's books. She lived up until 1941, where she committed suicide for various reasons, including that the Germans were coming. And the thing was that she had big issues because her lover was assassinated. And after that, she completely took a nosedive mentally, in general. So way before she actually managed to kill herself. But she had a great turn of phrase in writing. So what she did was she took every single character that was loved by kids, and she wrote sequels, and they all die horrible, grisly deaths in them. So there is this particular one about the dog. The first book is called The Dog's Name. I'm not translating it because it doesn't translate well in English. And she gives it a nice ending. The dog starts off as a stray, then finds a family, and in the end stays with a family. That family in the sequel gets involved in a weird Balkan war thing
Yeah.
It has no place in a children's story like this that was meant only for kids. The master of the dog, who was an awesome character, gets killed in a terrible ambush by weirdo partisans. Maybe nobody knows exactly. And then they also kill the dog for some reason.
Oh God.
Oh.
And you. I mean, even now that I'm 41 years old and my hair stands on end. She destroys the entire cast with malice. And of course, you hate her. Although the story is very nice, it should have been a story with a different cast, completely different characters.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't have been, of course, for kids. So, at least not young kids. It should have been for young adults. Yeah. So the thing that the morale I'm trying to say is when you have stories that are meant to be considered and approached in certain ways, you cannot then use the same characters in a different story with completely different tone, completely different messaging and thematology, let's say, and completely different circumstances that put these characters into conditions that would not be expected by what is established. Again, that is ingenious, in my opinion, at least. So you have this obligation to your audience not to surprise them with, and vice versa. Okay, if you go in to watch it and you end up watching Little House on the Prairie, you again are going to. It's going to be a disservice.
Right.
Even if they all live in the end. So yeah, that's a tangent that I wanted to.
Yeah.
So the question I asked was, because we're getting to the end, and the question I asked before was favorite endings.
Yes,
good endings.
We're close. Well, let's quickly get through these last of these comments, just to be fair. Used Books says, I have a scale of success for a story ending. If I leave a theater or finish a book or video game talking about the ending I would have written, it failed. If they used an ending I would have written, it was a medium success. If they came up with an ending that surpassed what I had in mind, it was exceptional. Usually only that last category are stories I'm excited to watch, read, or play again. I agree with that. Mm-hmm. I've never thought about it, but that's what's hard about endings, you know. You kind of have to exceed what people are expecting. Mm-hmm. Not stick it to the audience, like you said. Not just be predictable, but be like to elevate everything in some way.
Yeah. And
be, you know. Yeah, so they're tough. They're tough to do.
Yeah, that's a good point about, you know, not being something that you would, you know, have a better ending yourself, or you would write better. You know, you'd come up with a better solution or something like that. Definitely, that is a good point. If you're still thinking, now, this is how I would have done it, and I would have done it this way, and I would have done it that way. Obviously, that was disappointing because...
Yeah.
You had better ideas.
You'd be like, oh my God, I never saw that coming, and it was just right. You know, like that kind of thing. It's like,
Awesome. Case in point, guys, Game of Thrones has at least a few hundred different endings. How people would have ended differently.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, a good ending like that. I mean, this is not one of my favorite endings, but a good ending was say Unbreakable. I think that's the movie. It's an M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong movie. The ending of that's pretty good, and it wasn't something that I expected at the time. I was impressed by that, the way that was done. So
yeah, I mean, especially with the tone of that movie, like you're really expecting like something bad might happen. That I don't want to spoil. That would be so old. I guess it's okay. But you're really, strong possibility that he was going to die.
At
the end, it felt like it could go either way on that one. So it was kind of
that was
made it powerful.
A well done movie. Yeah, so I'm not a fan of Shyamalan or a detractor. It doesn't really matter to me, but I like that film.
Used Books goes on to say, also, if a story leaves loose ends, it drives me nuts. They should at least address them. Like, what happened to blank? What about this guy? What about that girl? Like, what happened to... Yeah, that's true.
Well, they're always going to be loose ends in a film, but it depends how big a loose ends they are. Yeah. Loose, like main characters, like you say. So, yeah. That's
Bravo goes in the end says, I'm very much in accord with Used Books, though the ending of Into the Woods was presented in the play. I grew up in the 1970s when everything was about subverting expectations. So, guess what, now as well? So most endings were unsatisfying. Might be part of the reason I latched onto watching old movies, in addition to mom and grandma both being avid moviegoers. I don't have too many problems with an ending if I can see how the story led up to it. I habitually predict endings often with great accuracy, so I get a mind blip without warning. Better gave some logic behind it, even if
has
not
some logic behind it.
Has yes. Okay, sorry. So okay. That's the thing. I believe that if you have a proper and good ending, unless with some exceptions, a good part for some part of the audience is going to guess what the ending will be, because it leads up to it. If you have some experience with stories, you know how it is most likely going to end, and that's fine. You don't need to surprise all your audience.
Well, okay, I'll use this moment to jump into one of my favorite endings of a film, and I feel it is a really good ending. All right, so one of my favorite films, Conan the Barbarian, the 1980 film with Arnold Schwarzenegger playing Conan. So this film is a really clever, almost I would say arty. It wasn't even like a barbarian film. I mean, it was the start of the 1980s barbarian craze, but in itself, it was more like an Italian spaghetti western in a lot of ways. It was done more in that style. And more an arty take on the sword and sandal thing, which was a very big thing in the 60s. So anyway, you've got this character who is doing a lot of sword fighting and defeating his enemies, learning how to become, the Übermensch, the Übermenschen, the Superman through denial of, worldly wants and all that kind of thing. So he's got
you
all
don't deny any worldly want. Oh no.
Well, towards the end, he did. Like his he didn't have his girl anymore, and he didn't have as he was sort of like whatever. Towards the end, he sort of stripped off a lot of those things, and he was dedicated to revenge. Anyway, so the film is all about a lot of these exciting action set pieces, horses riding and people being fighting and all this kind of stuff. Yes, he did. So there's all that kind of stuff, and that's super exciting. But in the end of the film, it is incredibly downbeat. It's okay. Conan finally gets to the temple of Thulsa and all the followers are out there, like with these flaming torches, and they're all around this massive dais, and he is on the top with Thulsa and he's like got Thulsa hair in his hand. And, Thulsa looking at him to try and mesmerize him with his snake glare, and Conan just hacks his head off in front of all these people. And what you're sort of expecting is, oh my god, these these followers are just gonna race up the dais and they're just gonna massacre Conan, and he's just gonna fight thousands of them. But what happens is he hacks off Thulsa's head, throws it down the stairs, and so you just see this head sort of bouncing down the stairs, and he throws his, like, the torches down or whatever, and burns this huge dais, and all this crowd of people, they just, since Thulsa's dead, no longer do they believe in this cult anymore, and they ditch it as well. So they all come and they all throw their torches into the, whatever, onto the dais and burn it down, and that's the end of the film. It's a really incredibly downbeat ending. It's like, okay, this guy's dead. We no longer believe in this, and Conan's revenge is totally sated, and even the music is very downbeat. And but it doesn't feel like a cheat. You'd expect that, being such a huge action film with all these, fighting scenes and that kind of thing, you'd expect that to feel like cutting the legs out from under you. You think, what the hell is this? But it feels right. It feels like a perfect coda to the action. It closes it off with a nice kind of very, very, even though, obviously having someone's head cut off is quite a brutal thing, it seems like a very gentle ending, because you end up with this very nice gentle music and people just, throwing their torches away and throwing their belief away, saying, okay, I no longer follow this cult anymore. You have, you've taken the scales from our eyes. We no longer believe in this cult. We are, cured of it. And yeah, I don't know. It just felt good, so I picked that out as a good ending. And I think it actually gave the film a more arty and satisfying a feel, rather than, if you had a more action kind of ending, then it would have felt ultra cheap. It wouldn't have felt satisfying. It would have cheapened things. Whereas this,
it's got some depth to it, some resonance to it. Because
exactly.
Multiple colors.
Yeah, so that's a good ending because it enhanced the film in a subtle way.
Right.
Okay, so that's mine.
That's great. Well, I got 6 of them, so I won't go on it at length about why. But for tearjerkers, that surprised me by elevating and deepening on an emotional level in a way I didn't see coming. And there are so many more, but these are just the ones I came up with that stick out in my memory. Would be Field of Dreams.
Oh, yeah.
Kevin
Costner.
What's his name? Movie. Not Kevin Spacey. Yeah, Costner. Better Kevin. With the ending on the baseball field, which if you know it, you know it, and you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, go see that movie. It's one of the all-time greats. And the other one would be Homeward Bound, which is based on the novel. The novel has the same kind of powerful ending. It's sort of, it's coming, but the way it's put together and edited is so beautiful. And I mean, if you have your tissues nearby for the ending of that movie, because it's beautiful. It's so well done.
Okay.
For sort of character growth things that I found inspiring, I chose High Fidelity and 27 Hours, which were very well done. High Fidelity delivered on all the character arcs, and the main question of, like, will Rob figure it out romantically or life-wise? Like, will he be able to get out of the rut he's in and move on, and what's going to happen? It all gets answered. The side characters, especially Jack Black, has a great completion to his arc, and it all kind of comes together in the last 2 scenes. Phenomenal. 27 Hours, the completion of that character arc I found really powerful, although people have criticized the theme for being like an anvil or something. I disagreed, and the theme of like needing other people was delivered in a really powerful way. I thought that was an awesome movie.
Okay.
And an awesome ending. Horror endings that made me not want to watch the film again. Sleepaway Camp. And again, if you've seen that, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen it and you like horror, don't look it up. Go see it, and good luck to you. It's chilling and kind of for such a cheap, corny movie, the ending is kind of like really chilling. Kind of really gave me the creeps. For comics, I would do Y, The Last Man, which had an amazing ending. I'm not even sure why it affected me so deeply, but it did. The way the characters pay off in the end and then where it goes in the epilogue sort of exceeded all expectations. Those would be my top. Yeah.
Oh, well, that was a lovely list. A very comprehensive. What about
That's what I do. I deliver in the end.
You're a climax sort of guy.
Actually, I feel like I haven't done my homework now.
I had to give extra props to the movie adaptation that actually talks about writing and screenwriting and endings. They actually talk about it, and then the movie goes on to actually deliver that type of movie ending. That's really neat and a very worthwhile movie.
Meta.
But yeah, I'll stop now. Kind of meta.
Okay, let me think. Let's go by category, I guess. From war movies that are the first to come to mind right now, I will still choose Fury. I find it a very compelling and actually complete ending, although it is very bittersweet. It is heavy, but it is not desperate. And none of the characters have truly desperate ending. They have their own character arcs throughout the journey with the tank and everything that they see. And I think that the way that they wrap it up and the way that every character makes the choices that they make, I just don't want to spoil the ending completely. I think that it is done in a very balanced and what is the word now in English? In a very complete way, flawless. Let's say flawless way for the particular thing. The other one that I liked very much in war movies as an ending, but it was more of a surprise in the way that they wrapped it up as an epilogue rather than the movie itself. Maybe was Hacksaw Ridge. I liked that as well. As an ending, which is very much a story about asserting yourself with your beliefs and changing the environment around you rather than changing yourself. Although the character as well goes through a journey of main character of his own, the biggest issue and the biggest message is how he changed characters that surround him rather than the other way around. I really like that. And of course, because the way they do it in the end was after the story is done, it fades into the actual person that was giving an interview. Then it's when it really hits you in the gut with the profound that this is not just a story. This actually happened like this. And the fact that you realize that this is how it happened, because you have all the real people that were characters in the movie being shown talking about this, then it has a very, very powerful ending because it tells you, it taps you on the shoulder in a sense, and you know what, all of this, it was actually done the way that I showed you it was done.
What was
so
the name
that
of that film again?
Makes it even more profound. But I cannot say that it's the ending so much as it is the context that changes.
What was the name of the film? Sorry,
Hacksaw Ridge.
Hacksaw Ridge.
Hacksaw Ridge. Oh right. I kept on asking you about it and didn't realize my microphone was on mute. I thought, why are they ignoring me? Why are they ignoring me?
As far as surprise endings go, I have to go with The Others. I think it is one of the best endings to watch without knowing what's coming. Because the way that it is set up, you really can't see what's coming, But not because you are, a dumb audience, or because the director decides to just, throw all the toys out of the pram, in a sense. But because it's just that they give you different glasses. See the exact same thing through these different glasses, and that's how the ending happens. And that is beautiful.
Different pennies on your eyes.
Yes, exactly.
That was so creepy. Oh my God.
The other one that I really liked as an ending was, which was a very bad ending actually, was the Parallax Case. Ending in no way satisfactory, in that the character's goal is not achieved. Not only is the character's goal not achieved, I will spoil this one because it's a very old movie, and I don't think the impact is going to be different if you know what is coming. The character is also painted as the villain, although you know that he is the hero. But it ends with him taking the blame for the thing that he was trying to stop. And that is a very big grounding into reality of how certain things work. And I think it was a perfect ending for the purposes of the movie. So that's the ones I can think of. I'm sure once we are done, I will think of everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. You guys came up with so many, so I'll pick up one more. All right. So, The Ghost in the Shell, the 1995 movie, the Masamune Shirow comic of the same name, Ghost in the Shell. I think it's Masanori Ota who did the film. I'm not sure. Anyway, it's a good film. Cyberpunk. I'm sure everybody knows it. The ending, though, it's rather interesting in that it's another film with, lots of action set pieces and lots of confusing cyberpunk stuff, while the ending is very downbeat and very intellectual. So you're sort of taken all the way away from all the action stuff and just jumped into this way more intellectual ending where the character says, yep, look, I'm merging with the this new being, this artificial creation of humanity, this being who has become sentient through his own devices on the web, and now I am him as well. We are like and I've transcended humanity, and that's the ending, which is so totally unlike what you expected the ending would have been, because it's all about tracking down this evil terrorist that's killing these people for whatever reason, and it takes a long while to understand, and I don't think you're unsatisfied by it. You're just left kind of wondering at it, and it's not an ending you can really properly understand or properly feel complete on first viewing. You have to watch it a few times in order for it to properly sink in and properly feel like an ending. It's one of those endings where you think you force your head to make it feel right, or you force your head to say, yeah, this is the end of the film, there's no more, so I've got to understand it in order for this ending to work. So you eventually understand it after all. And but if you watched it a few times, it makes more sense. But so that's an interesting one. But it does work. Yeah. It does work if you've watched it a few times. And again, it does lend the rest of the story a bit more depth. Or not that. I think the story did have the depth, but it forces you to understand the depth that was there. Because you can tend to get seduced by action and visual spectacle. And this ending says, wait a minute, that wasn't what the story was about. That was just garnish. This story was about something way deeper all along. So that's what it does. Which is, So that's cool. my ending. A bit wanky, but yeah. All right. So, thank you guys for being so fantastic with your endings and your stories about stuff, anecdotes. That were fantastic.
Yes. Check out our Patreon video, by the way, if you want to become a patron. We talk about Blade Runner, famous film with multiple endings. We kind of talk about that for a few minutes.
Yeah, something that's completely off. What we
it's not off. It's relevant.
Oh no,
it's not included here.
We didn't talk about it at all in the QUACKCAST, so it's something different.
Yeah.
Something off the track, off this track.
Yeah.
Yes. You can also see us do it. It's, always a bonus.
In our bodies. we switched just for a second there, but we don't like
robot bodies.
Baines and I switched Tance and Pit, and it didn't go well. All right. Thanks very much for that. Listening to the QUACKCAST number 444. Pit quit. She ended early because
quit face.
Yeah, quit face. That was the end of her plot. She reached the culmination. She achieved what she needed to, and we dropped her from the particular story. So and our three characters made it towards the end. Yeah, that's the story structure. That's how it goes. Okay, right. Bye bye, people.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.